To call the Onslow County Board of Commissioners meeting for Monday, February 3rd, 2025 to order at this time. And we'll start by asking Ms. Carrie Sanders, Assistant County Manager, to lead us in the invocation.
Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this opportunity to come before you and conduct the business of Onslow County. Lord, be with the commissioners in their deliberations and bless them with wisdom and guidance as they address the items on today's agenda. Bless our citizens, first responders, and those defending our nation. May all we do this day bring you honor and glory. Amen.
Amen.
Now, with deep respect and reverence for the faiths, beliefs, and traditions of those gathered here today, join me in a moment of silence. Thank you.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I acknowledge the elected officials here with us this morning. We have Sheriff Chris Thomas, Alderman Rick Grant from North Topsail, and Mayor Pete Parnan from Holly Ridge. And Amiga is here somewhere, and our Register of Deeds, Amiga Jarman. So we appreciate all of them being here this morning. And we ask that you, yes.
He's not elected.
We ask that all in attendance please set your cell phones to silent or vibrate mode. The board offers the public one opportunity to speak during the meeting. Comments should be limited to no more than 5 minutes and maybe on any issue on which the board has control. In accordance with the board's adopted rules of procedure, commissioners shall reserve responses, if any, for the commissioner comment period on the agenda. At this time, we need to have a motion to adopt today's agenda.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I believe it was the intent to adopt the commissioner-appointed boards and committees. Was that something you wanted to amend the agenda for to place on consent?
Motion to amend the agenda to approve the commissioner-appointed boards.
It's on to the consent agenda?
Yes, sir.
Yep. All right, so we have a
Add it to
motion.
the consent agenda. Okay, sorry.
So making a motion to amend the agenda to add the commissioner-appointed boards and committees to the consent agenda.
So moved.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Now we need a motion to adopt the agenda as amended.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right. Item 2, we need a motion to approve the items on the consent agenda.
Motion to approve.
Second. Motion and a second. Any comment or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, hearing none, we'll move right to item number 3, which is public comment.
We have one citizen signed up for public comment this morning. It is Tim Bogey.
Morning, ladies and gentlemen, Chairman. Here I am again. It's been a little while since the last time I was here. My name is Tim Bogey. I live down in Hubert. However, today I'd like to talk about Maynard Manor and its road issue. We all know most of the background. Maynard Manor subdivision that connects to Gum Branch. AMC Properties, EM Cost and Harris were the original developers. They are no longer in business, and sadly, some of those have passed away at this point. New Century Homes only developed the back end of it with Shipman's Pike and the back end of Maynard Boulevard. Maynard Manor roads are currently considered private or orphaned. No one conducts maintenance on the road. No HOA or POA was ever established. In speaking with Mr. James Mades at New Century Homes, he stated that road repair issue was turned over to a Mr. Eddie Eisman at 304 Shipman's Pike. I talked to Mr. Eisman. He did not have the resources to support to begin HOA or POA, as most of the residents had already lived in that area for almost a decade. So we wanted to start a HOA. Now, some of the plats that I pulled off a line from the Register of Deeds, Book 35, page 237, Phase 1, Maynard Manor, from February 1998, designates the streets as private. Notes will state road, but notes do state that road is on for public dedication, and this was approved by the county subdivision administrator at the time. Book 39, page 17, Phase 2, Maynard Manor, January of 2000, streets are now designated as public. Book 43, page 155, Phase 3, Maynard Manor, October of 2002, owner installation guarantee is now part of the plat. Dedicate all streets to public or private as noted. As noted, shows the streets as public, and says roads will be for public dedication. This was also approved by the county subdivision administrator and also the district engineer. The street disclosure statement that was added to the plat states, all streets herein are intended to be dedicated for public use, but have not been accepted as of this date. The Department of Transportation may be petitioned to accept streets upon meeting residency requirement or 2 occupied homes for each 0.1 mile of the street, provided 20% of the homes are individually owned by the property. Continuing on with the plats, it's pretty much the same thing over and over. The streets are designated as public. However, nothing ever kind of came of it. There's a lot of misleading information when it comes to who is in charge of what. As in 2007, Lot 61 had a disclosure statement saying that they would take over the area in front of their house. A covenant on Book 2586, page 814, from January 2006, about 15 lots were given over to the owners for maintenance, though no residents were ever identified or notified for those parcels. Book 3381, page 182, from 2010, shows that New Century Homes, in a email to AMC Properties, that they would take over the maintenance of the road. Some of the statutes that I've referred to is NC General Statute, Chapter 136, most notably the right of petition, which says that 75% of the residents, if petition the Board of Commissioners, the Board of Commissioners, if accepted into the minutes, will send those minutes up to the Transportation Department for consideration of the road. There's 124 residents that live in Maynard Manor, so it'd be about 93 total residents. Okay, so a couple concerns. Mail delivery, they have filed a claim with their supervisor to stop mail service in that area. The buses will only go to Sword Street, which is the first road on Maynard Boulevard, to drop off kids and to let the kids, pick up the kids. Some of those kids have to walk a full mile in order to get to their bus or get back to home. Parents must plan their schedule, work, or howbeit, around the bus schedule. Emergency needs, response time is detrimentally reduced, and eventually will not be able to respond to an emergency as conditions worsen. I also believe there's a sewer line issue going down that road. As I see my time is about to be up, I will hold the rest and put it in your hands, because I got some issues, conclusions about who's going to be accountable for it. I do appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bogie.
Mr. Chairman, that was the last public speaker for public comment period.
All right, thank you. We'll move to item 4 in presentation. So we'll invite the Onslow County Hospital Authority up for their audit report.
Good morning. My name is Andrea Spatrini. I'm an audit partner at the accounting firm BDO USA. This is the second fiscal year that BDO USA has audited the financial statements for the Onslow Hospital Authority, again for 2024. So we were engaged to audit the 9-month period ended June 30th, 2024. And previously, the fiscal year end of the hospital was September 30th, 2023. So the change in the year did result in a shorter initial period in the financial statements in the packet that you have. It is for a 9-month period ending June 30th, 2024. BDO has completed our audit for such period, and we issued our audit opinion on October 28th, 2024. The audit was conducted in generally accepted accounting principles and audit standards in the United States. It was also conducted with governmental auditing standards as well. We were also engaged to perform the single audit, which was a federal compliance audit in accordance with the uniform guidance in the OMB. And the results of those audits was submitted to the Federal Audit Clearinghouse within the designated timeframe. The financial statement audit includes the audit of the hospital authority's statement of financial position, or the balance sheet, the statement of revenue, expenses, and changes in net position. It includes also a statement of cash flows and the related disclosures. And also in the packet that you should have, there's a number of supplemental schedules in the back that are required to be included for the single audit and financial information by entity. The audit resulted in a clean opinion or unmodified opinion, meaning that there's no material misstatements in the financial statements that are presented to you. Additionally, we did not note any significant or unusual transactions. We did not note any alternative accounting treatments applied, and we did not note any material misstatements that would need to be corrected. Our audit approach is a risk-based audit approach, and our team is comprised of individuals very experienced in the healthcare and governmental space. There was no difficulties in performing the audit, and the audit report was submitted within the required timeframe. So at the conclusion of the audit, we did receive a standard management representation letter from executive management of the hospital attesting to the validity of the information and representations made throughout the audit process. In the document that was provided to you, the audit firm's opinion is on pages 4 and 6. 4 through 6, and that again states that the financial statements that are included therein are materially accurate and can be relied upon. The audit language is very standard with the American Institute of CPAs. Pages 8 through 13 is labeled as a management's discussion and analysis, and that information is unaudited, but that is a very high-level summary of financial information and operations of the hospital over that 9-month period. On the statement of net position, as of June 30th, 2024, that it presents the balance sheet, and the current assets exceed current liabilities by an amount standard for the industry, and the hospital continues to maintain positive net position. On page 16 includes the statement of revenues, expenses, and changes in net position, which reports approximately a 4% margin and stable, and again comparable for the industry. On pages 17 and 18 is the statement of cash flows. It simply shows how cash got from one position at the start of the period to the end of the period. And page 19 begins the financial statement disclosures. So that is consistent with prior year, consistent with the industry as well, and there's no unusual policies or positions taken by management. On page 26, you'll note there's a disclosure regarding charity care. So that describes the hospital authority's policy on providing charity care to the surrounding areas and patients. Charges that qualify for charity care are not pursued for collection and are excluded from revenue, and charges foregone approximated over $16 million. On page 29, there is a disclosure about the investment portfolio and well-balanced and relatively liquid. And then also page 31 through 35 has an extensive disclosure over the post-employment defined benefit medical plan for eligible retirees continuing such medical benefits. And on page 46 begins the supplemental schedules, so that's additional information on the post-employment medical plan. And also then it includes pages on further disaggregated financial information for the period by legal entity. And then finally, in part of the package, starting on page 58, is BDO's opinion on the laws and regulations applicable to the hospital authority. We are not aware of any noncompliance that would have a material effect on the financial statements. And then page 60 includes the opinion from the audit firm on compliance specific to the HUD mortgage program. Is relatively clean and in order. There's no material instances of noncompliance, and therefore we issued a clean opinion on the schedule of federal awards. Also included in the federal single audit portion is any findings that we reported. There were no material findings that we are required to document in writing that would have an impact in the audit moving forward. Management's response to all of this results is well planned out, and we don't see any concern moving forward as far as federal compliance with the hospital authority. That is all I had for you today. Any questions?
Questions?
Yeah, I got one having sat and listened to many audits, I have not heard an auditor say relatively clean before, so that makes me nervous.
Sorry, no, that was an added word. It is a clean opinion as far as the compliance
Okay.
and also the reliance on the financial statements.
Thank you.
Any other discussion or questions? Hearing none, thank you very much. We appreciate
Thank
it.
you. Yep.
Now, our financial presentation from Mr. Kevin Patterson.
Good morning. I am here to present the financial information for the first 2 quarters of the fiscal year. Going through this, you will notice right now we have collected, as of December 31st, $144 million. So we are approximately halfway through our budget. If you'll look at the ad valorem taxes this year, we're slightly below where we were this same time last year. But with that, we looked at the first week of January. First week of January 2025 versus 2024. In 2025, we collected an additional $8 million over the previous year. So this is a timing difference of when the property taxes were actually received and processed by the tax department. As of January 15th, we have collected $121 million of current year property taxes. So we have collected the 95% of our budget as of January 15th. Sales taxes, we have collected $1.3 million in excess of where we were last year, so that does show a slight growth. You will notice there is a change in our sales and services. We are about $3 million less of where we were last year. This is a change that I've instituted in our EMS. In previous years, we booked our revenues based on a full accrual basis. As it was billed out, it was booked. We have modified that back to a modified accrual. So basically, we have gone back to a cash basis of accounting for EMS. This is particularly important in EMS because with it, our collection rate would be about 50% throughout the year. We collect most of our revenues within 90 days, up to 120 days, depending on how fast insurance claims pay out. Our private pay uncollectible is significant, as that is statewide through EMS services. So we thought that, first of all, it is the appropriate accounting method, and also booking full revenues gave us an unclear picture of exactly where we are in EMS. And that change in accounting would go off and book approximately, that's about a $4 million change in revenue recognition. So with that, that puts us back on par where we were last year. And again, as of January 15th, we have collected $121 million out of our property taxes, as well as an additional $6 million of motor vehicle taxes. The motor vehicle taxes will continue on a fairly regular collection rate throughout the year. But again, personal property taxes, or personal taxes for ad valorem and personal property, those are going to drop significantly throughout the rest of the year. We will see a small spike in the end of February, 1st of March, as we go off and do our publications, but collections through property taxes will be significantly declined. As you can see, just a historical trend prior 2 years. And of course, the blue line is the 2024 data, so that's why it just hit 0, because we've not shown anything on this data. And again, sales taxes, we are showing an increase for the first 3 months of $1.3 million. And just looking again at the collection rate, of course, with sales taxes, we are receiving those 3 months in arrears due to processing. But if you look at the trend line and the dotted line, so we are seeing an annual growth rate, as we discussed last week. But also you can see it is extremely spiky as we collect in. But there is actually a pattern, of course. So our top revenue months are December, March, and June throughout the year. So those actually come in March, June, and September. So if you looked at this chart year after year, you will see those are your top spikes. And again, just looking at it, if you just wanted to compare those month to month, you can see exactly where we are as well. Also, the expenditures by function. Out of this, we are still on path. We are currently still underspending our total budget with this. Looking at all the budgets, you do have them broken out by function. In your packet, there is also greater detail on the breakdown of expenditures as well as revenues. Again, also looking at it, looking at our expenditures by category. Again, we are looking at spending rates right on target, and we are still slightly below where our total budgets are. One thing with, we'll bring out on the salaries and benefits, that as of this point in time, the salary study has not been impacted in these numbers. That is still probably not going to take it up to the full amount of expenditures throughout the year, because that will only be 6 months out of a $5.2 million budget. So, but that number will come much closer to where we're looking to for the end of the year. Any questions?
Comments, questions? All right.
Also, at the previous session, a draft copy of financial statements for the 2024 fiscal year were left at it. These are not the final numbers, but we do have, these are the first drafts that we'll begin doing technical review on for fiscal year 2024. With that, we are still waiting on our actuarial study for our other post-employment benefits so we can finalize our government-wide financial statements. But we do expect to have a copy of our full act to the auditor, hopefully by the end of next week for final review. So that should be completed in February.
Thank you, Mr. Patterson. Thank you. We'll move into item 5 with public hearings, and I think we'll start Carter up on the.
Good morning, Chairman, Vice Chairman, and our County Commissioners. This is the first rezoning of 6, so I thank you for your patience today, as we will have several. As the Hunters Creek rezoning request, PRZ 2024 number 23 is our first one at bat. We have the applicant is the Tidewater Associates Incorporated, and the owner is listed on the screen. So we take a look at an overview of the request. It is from Residential 5 or R5 to Community Business or CB. There's 4 properties in question. Those tax map numbers are there listed on the screen. It's located off of Piney Green Road and the intersection of Piney Green and Hunters Trail, and is in the White Oak Township. The entire rezoning area across the 4 parcels is 2.37 acres, and the property's existing use is forested. We'll take a look at the services for that area. There's 2 different Onwassa water mains in that area. You have a 24-inch and an 8-inch. And then you have for the wastewater, the 14-inch and then the 6-inch Onwassa sewer mains. One on Piney Green Road, and that's our 14, and then the 6 is on Hunters Trail. We'll take a look at fire services for Piney Green Fire District with an ISO rating of 3. The traffic for that area is we looked at Piney Green Road, and in 2022, there's a 14,500 trip count. Staff estimates, again, the capacity to be at 27,000, so way below capacity there. The schools serving the property are Hunters Creek Elementary, Hunters Creek Middle School, and White Oak High School. All schools are currently over capacity, but with our projections of this going to commercial would not create any additional students for our school system. Here you can see the 4 properties in question there outlined in black with the cross hatching. All 4 share frontage there on Piney Green, there with our most southern parcel sharing the Hunter's Trail. And you can see the light blue color is existing community business zoning. Compare the 2 districts. Residential 5's purpose is to accommodate moderate to high density single family, as well as multifamily residential developments in urbanizing areas of the county. When we take a look at community business, its purpose is to accommodate the establishment of small scale retail and service uses that would serve the nearby community. As well, just to note, that's why staff does not project any additional students, because even if you looked at multifamily, community business has half that of residential 5. Compare the comprehensive plan. We designate it for urban growth, and its purpose is to, again, designate lands for that urban scale growth pattern. It's designed to be in close proximity to our municipalities where infrastructure and services are available to facilitate that higher density residential development and our more intense commercial uses. We look at how that's applied with a residential and non-residential perspective. You can see residentially, we look at densities of 6 to 8 dwelling units or greater than 12 dwelling units per acre for multifamily. And with our non-residential, it's a wide range of intensive mixture of uses. And again, some of those are more regional scale because again, it's that higher intensity. Here you can see on the future land use map that light pink or salmon color is that urban growth category, and that yellow designation is that suburban growth pattern. There are no environmental conditions that staff were made aware of. There's no regulated floodplain on the property. There is no blue line streams. Wetlands have not been submitted to staff, but that would come through the review process. As staff was conducting analysis, it came to our attention. It is in the flight path overlay, which just have just additional restrictions as it relates to kind of the flight patterns coming in and out of Camp Lejeune and the New River Air Station. Again, that's something staff would work with the applicant on during the review process, as it only affects one of the parcels. We look at reasonableness and in the public interest. It could be considered reasonable because the subject property would be going to community business, and community business could be an appropriate zoning district for urban growth. It's consistent with the character area, and there's adjacent community business zoning. And the request is supported by 3 objectives in the comprehensive plan. Again, we want to proactively manage growth and utilize our comprehensive plan. We want to be mindful of areas that are facing growth pressure, and we also want to provide high quality and efficient services to all of our residents. Could be considered unreasonable because residential 5 is already a corresponding category to the urban growth designation. We'll look at Planning Board. They met at December 5th and unanimously recommended approval of the request. The applicant was present, and one citizen was there, but asked just general questions about the approval process for a major site plan, which would be the approval process for any sort of non-residential development on the property. And no military impacts were presented during the Planning Board meeting, and the flight path overlay was brought to the attention of our liaison, and again, no military impacts would be anticipated. Here you can see the overview of the subject property, and you can see its relation there towards West Thomas Avenue and Hunter's Trail. Closer look, you can see the property is lightly forested, and there's no evidence of any structures on the property. Here you can see where we posted the property for tonight's meeting. And then this is what it looks like from that corner of Hunter's Trail and Piney Green. So it is respectfully requested the Onslow County Board of Commissioners consider the proposed zoning map amendment of Period Z 2024 number 23 and adopt a statement of consistency for the amendment and authorize the chairman to sign the necessary documents on behalf of the county. This concludes the staff presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Metcalf. Mr. Smitherman, if you'll open this public hearing.
Yes, sir. Our only citizen signed up is Jason Houston.
He gets that Houston a lot. Houston.
Jason Houston, 306 New Bridge Street. Excuse me, getting over a cold. None of y'all know anything about that, do you? This property is surrounded completely by the CB zone. We've always considered it the commercial tracks, so this sort of is just cleaning up the zoning in that area so that it fits with the rest of the property around it, so they can do whatever they're going to do with it. If you got any questions, I'm in the audience.
Thank you. You want to make a call to the audience of any others? Any others like to speak? Seeing there's none,
It's the last speaker, Mr. Chairman.
all right. So it comes to us now.
Motion to approve.
Motion and a second. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, motion carries. Mr. Metcalf.
Next item before the board is the Bryn Creek rezoning request of Perry Z 2024, number 24. And the applicant is Tidewater Associates and the owner is Bryn Creek LLC. So we take a look at the request is from residential 15 to residential 10, or R15 to R10. There's one tax map number in question, which is 323-82.3. It's located at Blue Creek Road and Navy Blue Drive. It's across from that intersection, and it is in the Jacksonville Township. The total rezoning area is 11.45 acres, and it is forested and vacant. The nearby services, there's a 6-inch Onslow water main on Blue Creek Road and on Navy Blue Drive. There is a 36 Onslow sewer force main, though, along Blue Creek Road. Fire service for that area is southwest with an IOSA rating of 3. And our most recent traffic count the staff could find was from 2022 for 5,500 trips. Staff estimates the capacity of just over 13,000 for that road. The schools in that area are Meadowview Elementary, Southwest Middle School, and Southwest High School. The elementary and high school have capacity, while Southwest Middle School is over capacity. And just a note, as we talk about the schools through these presentations, Southwest Middle School is a common refrain. The elementary school kind of varies depending on which one of the rezonings of today's 6. Assuming how you approve the rezonings or how you deny them would impact Southwest Middle School's capacity. But just on the standalone merits of this individual rezoning, Southwest Middle School would be over capacity. Here you can look at the designations. You can see the pink as that residential 15, while the surrounding, some of the surrounding area is that lime green or RA designation. So we compare the two districts. Residential 15 is to accommodate moderate density single family in suburban areas of the county that have access to utility and transportation infrastructure to support a suburban development intensity. Again, a note, there's no multifamily allowed in residential 15. So comparatively to residential 10, you get that smaller lot size of 15,000 to 10,000, but also the introduction of multifamily. And its purpose is to accommodate moderate density single family and limited multifamily residential development in urbanizing areas of the county that have the necessary infrastructure. So we look at the comprehensive plan, it was designated as suburban growth. And it's to provide for opportunities for moderate density residential development, and then that's supporting non-residential development on the fringes of the municipalities and their associated urban growth areas. So going out from the municipality, you would have the municipality jurisdiction, urban growth, and then suburban growth. Again, we're decreasing density as we kind of radiate out from our municipalities. We look at the residential and non-residential lens. We will look at a density of 4 to 5 dwelling units or greater for single family, and then 8 to 10 dwelling units for multifamily. And those non-residential commercial uses would be ones that would support those nearby neighborhoods. You look at the designation, all of the properties in that area were designated suburban growth. And again, because you had that radial pattern coming out from Jacksonville. For environmental conditions, staff are unaware of any wetlands because again, that's handled through the development review process. There is no regulated floodplain on the property, and as well, there is no blue line streams found on the property specifically. The property is in the flight path overlay, and again, that would be covered through the review process, and again, a lot of that has to deal with uses that would create dust or smoke impacting visibility or structures, again, of a significant height. When we look at reasonableness in the public interest, could be considered reasonable because the future land use map as residential 10 would be an appropriate zoning district to the suburban growth future land use category. It's consistent with the character of the area, and there are nearby residential uses. Comprehensive plan objectives that would support it. Again, we want to proactively manage growth and guide new development to areas with the county with infrastructure to support that growth. We want to certainly improve the quality of life for our citizens and the infrastructure associated with it. And we want to create a broad range of housing types, styles, locations, price points, and amenities. The proposed rezoning could be considered unreasonable, again, if this rezoning is viewed as infringing on the preservation of the rural landscape. Look at Planning Board. Planning Board met at December 5th and voted unanimously to approve the recommendation of the rezoning request. The applicant was present and did speak to the board and to some of the concerns that citizens brought up. There are 5 citizens that spoke on the record, several submitted letters in advance, and several as well joined on to some of those letters. The concerns were regarding traffic on Blue Creek Road, specifically not just speeding, but also the number of cars on the road, concerns on school capacity, as well as some of the art programs in those schools, the potential for flooding, and just in general, the decline of rural character of the county as we are an urbanizing county. There are no military impacts were present during planning board, and again, that flight path overlay was brought to the attention of our liaison. And we look at the chairman of planning board's remarks, stated the owner wishes to rezone the property from R10 to R15. Multiple citizens objected to the rezoning due to infrastructure inadequacy, road safety, and schools. The board found the rezoning to be consistent with the Horizon 2040 plan and the future land use map, and concluded that the current capacity of the road was satisfactory, road improvements would be determined by NCDOT, and that the schools have capacity. Again, that was from our chairman of planning board. Here you can see an overview of the property and some of the surrounding uses. You can see the nearby residential developments. And again, you can take a closer look there. The property is forested. This is the placement of the sign, and apologies for the dark picture. Had to place the zoning signs after dark. But we did go back out to take a better picture for you, because who can see anything in the dark? All right. And it is respectfully requested for the Onslow County Board of Commissioners to consider the proposed zoning map amendment, or PRZ 2024, number 24. Adopt a statement of consistency for the amendment and authorize the chairman to sign the necessary documents on behalf of the county. This concludes the staff presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Metcalf. Mr. Smitherman?
Mr. Chairman, the first and only speaker for this public hearing is Jason Houston.
Jason Houston, 306 New Bridge Street. As you know, this area is suburban growth and it meets the zoning requirement. There were a lot of concerns about traffic and especially people speeding up and down Blue Creek Road, which I understand. DOT will control any type of traffic movements that we have to do as part of any development. One thing that Carter often says, and I know he has to, when they talk about a rezone, he has to talk about schools. And one of the things that he has to do is he has to look at the total area and then put the maximum amount of people that we can put on that and then extrapolate how many students that is. In reality, you know, we don't get as many lots as the zoning allows. There's always wetlands and buffers and everything else involved when you have to develop property to not ever get that maximum capacity that you're looking for. The other thing is we also have another utility, the Blue Creek Utilities. The subdivision we did across the street, we actually designed the sewer main to actually extend across the street to attach to this development, so we won't have to be tied to the Onwassa force main. If you got any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Houston. Any others that have not signed up? Open. All right, seeing none. Commissioners?
Are we closing
Motion
the
to
public hearing?
approve.
Yeah. Motion to approve. Second. Any discussion?
Mr. Houston, I had a question again, just, I was at that board meeting. Where was, I know one of the points of interest or concern was where the entrance to Blue Creek Road from this development might be. Is it going to be directly across from Navy Blue, or is it going to be down a little bit? from your projection?
We haven't done any layouts on anything. I've got some old preliminary stuff that I did years ago. The driveway at that time was going to be moved away from the entrance of Blue Creek Estates.
Okay. What's the impact either way? I mean, I'm just curious, how do you make that decision? Because I'm sure it does have to do with traffic leaving the neighborhoods and going on to Blue Creek Road.
Part of it for the layout that I did that was never approved, we never got anywhere with it. I think there was some wetlands at that entrance that we would have to impact, and so, we just moved it down.
Gotcha.
DOT would require any type of study to determine what kind of turn lanes we would need to do in anything in that area to make it safe.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Come on back, Mr. Metcalf.
All right, our third request is the Williams rezoning, PRZ 2024, number 25. The applicant is John L. Pearson Associates, and the owner is Mr. Bobby S. Williams. So we've taken a look at the overview of the request. It's from rural agriculture to community business. There's one tax map number in question, 324-197. It's located near the intersection of Burgaw Highway and Pony Farm Road, and is located in the Jacksonville Township. The total rezoning area is 1.15 acres, and the property is vacant and cleared. You'll see in our aerials, it appears forested, but it is not, and we'll see that from the on-the-ground picture. For the water service, there's a 12-inch Onawassa water main on Burgaw Highway, and many of the nearby properties are served by individual septic systems. The fire service is southwest, with an ISO rating of 3. And our most up-to-date traffic information comes from 2023, with a trip count of 13,000. Staff estimates the capacity of just under 15,000 for Burgaw Highway. Schools in the area are Blue Creek Elementary, Southwest Middle School, and Southwest High School. The elementary and the high school have capacity. And again, the middle school, we would say now would be over capacity based off of the previous rezoning. However, this is a request to go to a commercial district. When we look at the zoning map, you can see that intersection already has existing commercial zoning. 3 sides of it are community business, as well as the two immediate adjacent properties, while that southeastern corner has that highway business designation. So both of our commercial districts are already here at the intersection. So we compare the two zoning districts. Rural agriculture has a minimum lot size of 20,000 square feet, and its purpose is to maintain that rural development pattern that preserves the agricultural character of the county, while accommodating those limited low-density single-family and limited commercial uses. Look at community business, there's no minimum lot size, and its purpose is to accommodate the establishment of small-scale retail and service uses that would serve that nearby community. The comprehensive plan identifies the property as suburban growth, and its purpose is to provide opportunity for that moderate density residential development and the supporting non-residential developments for that nearby community. When we look at both the residential and non-residential components, for the residential piece, you want to see 4 to 5 dwelling units an acre for single family and 8 to 10 for multifamily. That non-residential piece, we would want to see commercial uses that would support, again, those nearby neighborhoods, which is the spirit and intent of community business. You're seeing the entire intersection is suburban growth. Much of the surrounding area is, again, from that radiating pattern we mentioned earlier. Environmental conditions, there's no regulated flood zones on the property, no blue line streams, and any sort of wetlands or their impact we would cover through the development review process. The proposed rezoning could be considered reasonable because it's aligning with the future land use map, as community business is an appropriate zoning district to suburban growth, especially when it's located at crossroads. It's consistent with the character of area and adjacent to community business zoning. The request is also supported by 3 policies in the comprehensive plan. We want to promote a wide range of different housing options. We want to ensure a wide range of commercial activities throughout the county. And again, we want to proactively be managing growth. The rezoning request could be considered unreasonable, again, depending how you view managing growth and where it's appropriate. Planning Board met at December 5th, and the Onslow County Planning Board voted unanimously to recommend approval of the request. The applicant was present, was not the president, and it spoke on the request, and no citizens spoke against it. No military impacts were presented either. The chairman of the planning board had the following remarks. The owner wishes to rezone the property from RA to CB. There is CB zoning in close proximity and is located near an intersection on a well-traveled highway. The board found the rezoning to be consistent with the Horizon 2040 plan and the future land use map. Here you can see the surrounding area and the nearby other commercial businesses. You can see here in the aerials, though, it shows the property is forested. However, it is not. Here you see we posted the property there nearby the speed limit sign right in front of the property. And this is what the property looks like. Again, apologies for the darkness of these pictures. It was also snowing. So it is respectfully requested that the Board of Commissioners would consider the proposed zoning map amendment of PZ 2024 number 25 and adopt a statement of consistency for the amendment and authorize the chairman to sign necessary documents on behalf of the county. This concludes the staff presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Metcalf. Mr. Smithman?
Yes, sir, we have one person signed up for the public hearing, Mr. Chairman. That's John Pierce.
John Pierce, 405 Johnson Boulevard. On behalf of Mr. Bobby Williams and family, submitted his application. And actually, if you look at the property, it's property to the north of it, which is right directly behind it, is already zoned. I had it rezoned several years ago to community business, and the corner lot is community business. So it seems to me it'd be a natural fit to rezone this piece. It squares it off, and I would just ask that you look at that fact that it's really and truly, Highway 52 is not an ideal place to lay your head down at night. So the other use would be probably be residential, and it's just not, it's much better use to be community business. And I'll be here to answer any questions the chairman or any other commissioners might have. Thank y'all.
Thank you, Mr. Pierce.
That's the final speaker for this public hearing, sir.
Okay. Is anyone else that would like to make a final call to the audience? All right. I will close it and move to commissioners.
Motion to approve.
Second. Motion and a second. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Welcome back, Mr. Metcalf.
All right, next item before us is the Rayner rezoning request, PZ 2024, number 27. The applicant is Tidewater Associates Incorporated, and the owner is South State Development. When you take a look at the requested changes from rural agriculture, or RA, to residential 15, and this would be 151.85 acres of the total 169.15. And then 17.30 acres would be going to community business. So this zone change, while there's one zoning on the property, RA, it is to a portion of R15 and a portion to community business. We'll look at how that's laid out on the map later with some of the maps on the screen. But there's one tax map number in question, 323-82. It's located on Blue Creek Road and Pony Farm Road on opposite sides of Blue Creek Road and is in the Jacksonville Township. And the existing uses that the property is forested with a few, looks like abandoned structures. The water serving the area, there's two different water mains. You have a 6-inch on Blue Creek Farms Drive and then a 14-inch on Pony Farm Road. Wastewater is a 36-inch on Wassa Sewer force main. And again, those are the publicly available utilities. The fire service is for Southwest Fire District with an ISO rating of 3. And this traffic count we have is a little bit further down the road from 2022 with 4,400. Again, staff estimates the capacity at 14,600. Schools serving the property would be Meadowview Elementary, Southwest Middle School, and Southwest High School. And based off the rezoning decisions from today, all schools would be projected over capacity. Here you can look at the subject property and that black outline and hash marks. You can see there it is split by Blue Creek Road. This is something that as roads were constructed during the county, and the road went through a parcel, is not always parceled out. As we look at the proposed request, though, it is that northern portion that's going to go to R15. And you can see that's the larger area. And then a smaller section there to the south, that is the proposed CB zone. As we take a look at the district comparisons, rural agriculture is a minimum lot size of 20,000 square feet. And its purpose is to maintain a rural development pattern that preserves the agricultural character of the county. Residential 15 is a smaller minimum lot size of 15,000 square feet, and its purpose is to accommodate moderate density single-family residential developments in suburban areas of the county. And we look at community business, and its purpose is the establishment of small-scale retail and services that would serve that nearby community. The comprehensive plan details the property and community, and suburban growth category. And its purpose is for moderate density residential development and supporting non-residential development on the fringes of the municipality. And when we look at the residential portion, so, for the R15 portion, we would want to see 4 to 5 dwelling units per acre, or dwelling units of 8 to 10 for multifamily. So R15 does not allow multifamily, and also we would project a little bit of a lower density than certainly that 5 dwelling units per acre, probably about 3 to 4. And then for the community business portion, we'll look at the commercial uses that would support neighborhoods and suburban growth, which again fits the intent of that community business designation. Here you can see the entire area is that suburban growth category. And for the environmental conditions, at the very rear of the property, there is some AE flood zone. That is a regulated flood zone from that blue line stream of Blue Creek, hence a lot of the names. There is some floodway, but again, that's not on the subject property, and any sort of non-encroachment areas, we would review that through the development review process. The proposal could be considered reasonable and in the public interest, as R15 and community business are appropriate zoning districts for the suburban growth category. It's consistent with the character area and nearby uses. The comprehensive plan would support it with characterizing future land use decisions based off of our future land use map, that we would be mindful of areas of the county facing significant growth pressure, and then as well, coordinating with the Onslow County School District to address any sort of needs of concern. As well, when we look at the objective potentially against it, it would depend on the amount of housing that the commissioners would deem appropriate for that area. Planning Board met on December 5th, and the Planning Board voted unanimously to recommend approval. The applicant was present for the meeting, and 6 citizens spoke against the request. Their concerns were regarding traffic, school capacity, flooding, and the decline of the rural character of the county. And no military impacts were present, and the chairman of Planning Board had the following remarks. The owner wishes to rezone one parcel to R15 and the parcel across the road to CB from RA. The same citizens who objected to the above rezoning request, referencing the Blue Creek rezoning, also objected to this one for the same reasons. Again, the board found the rezoning to be consistent with the Horizon 2040 plan and the future land use map, making the same conclusions with regard to roads and schools. The chairman is referring to that they found that roads and schools in that area had capacity. Here you can see an overview of the property. It is forested, and you can see again the nearby development Blue Creek Estates. A little bit of a closer look there. And there is some abandoned structures on the property a little bit further down Blue Creek Road, which they would be, addressed through any sort of site review. Here you see we posted the property, and then this is what it looks like as you're driving by, which is just a typical view driving through some of our parts of the county. But as respectfully requested, the Onslow County Board of Commissioners consider the proposed zoning map amendment of Period Z 2024 number 27, adopt a statement of consistency for the amendment, and authorize the chairman to sign necessary documents on behalf of the county. This concludes the staff presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Metcalf. Mr. Smitherman, would like to open the public hearing?
Yes, sir. Our first speaker, Mr. Chairman, is Jeff Morton.
Good morning, Commissioners. I appreciate you letting me speak to you. I live at Jeff Morton at 2536 Burgall Highway. I currently serve as the president of the Museum Foundation, but I'm here mainly to speak as a private citizen. I do want to make everyone aware that we do have an excellent museum staff, and we appreciate the support that you've provided over the years. They have a new changing exhibit that opened this past weekend called Shall We Gather, that focuses on the history of churches here in the county, and it's an excellent exhibit. I do want to thank you also for the support you've had or priority you've placed on the preservation of family cemeteries here in the county over the years, and that's in the capacity that I'm speaking as a citizen. This property that you have here under consideration, it's entitled, I think, the Rayner property. It's actually was owned by Jimmy Morton and has been passed down over the years through the Morton family. The majority of it, some of it is connected with the Dawson family, I believe. But the property does have a fairly sizable cemetery on it, the Robert Dawson Cemetery, that's been identified and marked. I have a personal interest in it because it's possible there may be two smaller cemeteries on the property, according to information that Jimmy Morton provided to me before he passed, and also from conversations we've had with some of the men that hunted the property over the years. And it's possible that our great-great-grandfather could be buried in one of those cemeteries. We do know from court records that he spent the last 2 years of his life on this property in one of the structures that's been referred to that's in a dilapidated condition. It was his son's house, and he lived the last 2 years of his life there with his son, his wife having preceded him in death about 20 years. But that's just my major concern, that when developments are made, that there is some means to ensure that a survey is done to identify and preserve family cemeteries. I've been able to talk to Josh Edmondson here with Tidewater, and I believe they've done a perimeter survey, but he's indicated to me they would do an interior survey. And I didn't know if that was actually a requirement you all had, or you just depended on the integrity of the developer to do that. But I just wanted to express that Isaac B. was a prominent citizen here in the county in the 1800s. He owned a business, a turpentine shipping business there at Tar Landing, and he was a justice of the peace during part of his life. And I would just hate for, anything that represents his life to be destroyed, inadvertently. And that's just my main request. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Morton.
Mr. Chairman, the next speaker is Josh Edmondson.
Mr. Chairman, board members, Josh Edmondson, 306 Newbury Street, Tidewater Associates. I will address Mr. Morton's concerns in just a second. But again, we do feel like our request R15 is based on development patterns in the area. Feel like this potential project will be consistent with those development patterns and intensities, as well as from a commercial perspective, being at the intersection. We do feel like this is a prime location to have some small-scale potential, commercial retail uses for neighborhoods in the area. And again, we feel like it's consistent with the land use plan. As far as the cemetery, we definitely, when we get to that point, doing our survey work, we capture everything on the property: topo, wetlands, creeks, any structures, any cemeteries, anything like that will be captured on our survey. So as we start design, we certainly will provide care and take that into account to ensure, again, proper care is taken to those areas. Happy to answer any questions you may have for us when the time is appropriate. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Epson.
Mr. Chairman, the next speaker, excuse me, I can't read their first name, but it is a Mr. or Mrs. Parker, and we would ask them to state their full name when they come up. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners, for letting me talk just a minute. I know this is a big formality goes on here. I did not know about the previous meeting, so I just want to express my concern for 169 acres here 11 acres over there, both on Blue Creek Road. I travel Blue Creek Road every day to my life. Traffic is terrible. It's terrible. I know that's not part of your job to build roads and stuff. As this being a formality, if you can petition NCDOT to try to maybe redo these highways, allow a better road, it beats our vehicles all to pieces. And I think that maybe next, that possibly you could maybe, instead of allowing 4 to 5 or 6 houses per acre, if you would consider allowing 2 to 3 houses per acre on these places here. There's a lot of wetland there. There's a lot, I've lived around there my whole life, as I said. Just major concerns that happen in a routine, everyday environment that goes on in these areas. Some of you may not know this area very good, some of you do. But if you would just kind of take that into consideration as you do your thoughts and mindsets here. Thank you.
Sir, could you state your name so the clerk has it for a minute?
Tim Parker. I live on Jim Blake Road, right off of Blue Creek Road.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Parker.
Mr. Chairman, the next speaker for this public hearing is Jason Houston.
Jason Houston, 306 New Bridge Street. We knew about the one family cemetery. I didn't know that there may be more, so I'd be interested to know where they may be. Obviously, we have to identify those on any plans that we do. We'll show them to planning, provide access, do all the things. DOT, as I said during planning board, this is a heavily traveled road. The worst part is people speed. So if we can get some people out there to calm down some of that traffic, the speeding part, that would help a lot. DOT will also, as large as this tract is, I know DOT is going to require a TIA. There'll definitely be roadway improvements. There'll be turn lanes. There'll be all kinds of stuff. The last thing was, I know at planning board, some of the people had complained about some drainage issues across the street on the commercial side. Obviously, as we do any type of site plan over there, we'll work with the neighbors and understand their concerns and mitigate them the best we can when we can. So if you got any questions.
Mr. Chairman, that was the final speaker that signed up for this public hearing.
All right, we'll make a final call to the audience. Anyone else that would like to come up and speak?
Thank you, gentlemen, for allowing me to speak. And I had no plans to speak until I got here. So my name is Chester Williams, and I live at the corner of Blue Creek and Pony Farm Road on the property that's going to be rezoned, possibly, well, probably. And I'd just like to express a few things. One is that my family is in education. My wife was a teacher. My daughter's a teacher at Southwest. We just left Meadowview for one of our grandchildren there. It was mentioned in every situation that our schools will be overcrowded. I mean, they're already overcrowded now. Teachers are hard to come by, and you put this many people on Blue Creek Road, I mean, left and right, in two pretty good-sized developments. Most of those people, I would assume, and I assume, are going to be military people, and most of them are going to have young children, and most of them will be going to an elementary school or middle school. Well, that's going to kill us. I'll tell you this about our Meadowview Elementary School. In the state of North Carolina, the top 10 elementary schools in North Carolina, the top 2 are in Onslow County, and Meadowview is one of them. But they're busting at the seams. If you guys don't know that, I want you to know that. And one of you right there in the middle can tell you that. You know, he's been in that situation. So I'd hate to see that happen to us. Of course, I know development, it comes. It just comes. That's just way of life. I've been living in luxury back there across from our church for, I don't know, a long time because I'm old. But when this new development comes about, that's where my neighbor's backyard's going to be, right where that wall is. It's a fact of life. I can't help it. You know, that's where it's going to be. But I'm also living on a hill, sort of back there, that's surrounded by water on half of it. And when I say surrounded by water, I've actually got a pond on one side that drains my neighbor's yard because it all comes that way. It crosses the front of my yard and goes around my house and goes back. And it goes through all that property behind me back towards the end of, but it flows all the way to that creek back there. That creek was named early in the conversation here, If that comes to play and someone is not really careful and they start filling in all those big ravines, and there's a bunch of them back there, and they all carry water to that creek. If they fill those in, I'm going to have to move because I'm going to be sitting on a lake. That's what's going to happen to me. My wife and I are both retired, and we've just been there a long time, and I reckon life will go on, and we'll do what we have to do, but it's really going to put a hurting on us. And I know one family is not going to cause the world to go bad. I mean, we're going to build houses, and we're going to keep on going. But that's just what's going to happen. Because the drainage if they stop the drainage, we'll be ruined, just ruined. So anyway, that's all I got to say. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Now, close the public hearing and to the commissioners.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Any discussion?
Yeah, I do have one question, Carter, on this. Does any of this fall under our subdivision requirements, knowing that you're going to have one piece of the parcel in one zone, another parcel in another zone, and the fact that it's separated by Blue Creek Road?
So the separation piece, that will be addressed, and they'll have to subdivide it out because moving forward, you can't create non-contiguous parcels. So once we go through that process, that's certainly something we would look at. As well as also, we do have a process for special purpose subdivisions. I know it's mentioned with the cemeteries to get those parceled out. Planning very proudly works with the museum to make sure that our cemeteries are being addressed. I think both county departments have that goal in mind to make sure our history is preserved. And that's something we regularly work with developers on to make sure that they're addressing those, but provided that we know they exist. But usually when the developers find them through their surveying or through the initial site work or whatever, we get those addressed on their plan approval and how those cemeteries are going to have parceled out, have access, and are being taken care of.
Since you bring up the cemeteries, what are ways that like, I know we had a situation back in Swansboro where the, God rest their souls, their bodies, their caskets had to be moved. How do we approach that? What is that trip line, if you may, when you're going to move a cemetery versus leave it in place?
I mean, that's ultimately at the developer. I mean, we would certainly, from planning side, that there's a historical nature to it. Our main focus is to make sure that the family and those who wish to visit have the access to be able to do so. That's where planning's piece, but it's really a multi-department conversation because also the health department has regulations on around when someone is going to be relocated. And I would certainly defer to Chrissy and Ms. Hoover on that requirement and what that would look like. But in the past, when those conversations have come up, we are very quick to all of a sudden start a conversation with myself, the health department, the museum, and about what that looks like and how we're all involved. But again, it would be up to the developer. Our side is making sure, hey, is it being documented through the deed record and access is being provided? That's planning's kind of focus with it.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I believe they could reach out to Jeff Morton. Jeff, if there's any other cemeteries in there, you might know where they're at. And I would think that Houston, there where the boys would get up with you to find out where they are. I know that people want to preserve those things, and I know that's a key issue, but it seems like Jeff Morton might know where they're at.
Any other questions? Also, Mr. Williams is talking about his property. That's going to be in the back part of the rezoning, and he's already got the pond there. What are the steps that are going to be taken back there to ensure that he doesn't wake up one morning on an island?
Certainly, so they'd have to pull a stormwater permit with the state. It's up the developer which permit they wish to engage, whether low density or high density. But certainly soil and erosion control, right? So any sort of sedimentation, any, grading and filling would be regulated by the state, as well as also the stormwater permit. So the creation of stormwater ponds, how they're again directing that drainage towards any of the natural topography of the site. All of that falls under the state stormwater permit, and I would defer to the applicant. They might have an idea of what they might be trying to pursue with that. But any sort of that development process, I would defer to the developer on it.
One other question on the water too. Can you just kind of quickly walk through what is the process for determining wetlands or not?
Yes. So ultimately, the final determination is going to rest with the Army Corps of Engineers. Okay, so it's under the 404, under the Clean Water Act, Section 404, to basically describe certain wetlands, and those are under federal jurisdiction. So the developer will usually either hire a consultant or they go direct with the Army Corps to identify those wetlands. If they hire a private consultant, they submit that determination to the U.S. Army Corps, and then they either accept or reject that determination. And then from there, that has to be denoted on the plat. If it's designated 404 and they want to impact that, as has been mentioned earlier in today's hearings, they have to go get a wetlands impact permit. The Army Corps, first, as you go through that process, you have to show how you've tried to avoid impacting that. Like that's the first criteria is I tried to avoid impacting it. Then if you can't, that's when you can have a conversation about impacting wetlands. And then again, that's all federal regulations. Planning's role is making sure that as you then create property, number one, that there's still a buildable area on those lots. But then number two, that is shown on the plats. So that way future homeowners know that's the area of which I'm limited on my disturbance.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
What recourse, once it's all done and the property's being flooded, what recourse does the homeowner have in poor decision on stormwater drain runoff and didn't anticipate it flooding another property?
So at that point, he's welcome to reach out to the Division of Water Quality Division of Water Resources under DEQ, the Department of Environmental Quality. So they do have a stormwater enforcement staff. I know they are limited in their capabilities. That's certainly been a concern, but we provide that direct phone number for citizens to call and to basically request the state to come out and see if the developer was in compliance with their state stormwater permit. Because the county does not regulate stormwater. There's nothing that our county staff can do. We try and be that listening ear and provide resources and just, again, be a good fellow citizen. But there's nothing that we can do because it was not our permit that we issued. But give them the resources to go to the state and ask the state to come out and intervene.
Okay. Hadn't heard any that commercial business on the corner there. Was there any concerns with that? So, all right.
If you would, Mr. Houston, would you confer with Mr. Williams about his property, how it's affected? Absolutely. Because he is right. I know this piece of property, and Chester is exactly right in what he's saying. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
No.
So the motion carries 5-2, I think is what it would be. All righty. Mr. Metcalf, do you have another one?
Could you give us a roll call, please?
Roll call for who voted what?
Yes, sir, please.
Just raise your hand if you voted no.
Easy enough, thank you.
All right. The next one, Mr. Metcalf.
All right. PRZ 2024 number 28 is the King rezoning request. The applicant is Mr. Joshua King and the owner is Anita King. So we take a look at the request is from RA, or Rural Agriculture to Residential 8 Manufactured. One tax map number in question, 754A-44. It's located at 315 Verona Road and is in the Stump Sound Township. The rezoning area is 0.62 acres and the existing use is residential. So look at services in the area. There's a 6-inch Onslow water main on Verona Road. Many of the nearby properties are served with individual septic systems, and it is served by the Verona Fire District with an ISO rating of 3. The latest traffic count we have is from 2023 on Verona Road of 1,100 trips. Staff estimates the capacity slightly above 13,000. The schools serving the property: Southwest Elementary School, Dixon Middle School, and Dixon High School. The elementary and high school currently are projected to be over capacity, while the middle school would have capacity. Here you can look at the zoning map. Is again rural agriculture, and that is the green designation. You can see there the designation across the street, and they're down a little bit of High Hill Road. That pink is residential 8 manufactured. Then the other pink is residential 15. And then you can see again the proximity to the military base there, and that's what's in that beige color. So we compare the two districts. Rural agriculture is a minimum lot size of 20,000 square feet, and its purpose is to maintain the rural development pattern, preserving the agricultural character of the county, while accommodating limited low-density single-family developments. Compared to residential 8 manufactured, the proposed zoning district is to accommodate moderate to high-density single-family and multifamily residential development, as well as a specific emphasis on manufactured housing in urbanizing areas of the county. Multifamily is allowed, but it's by a special use permit. Otherwise, the minimum lot size, again, is at 8,000 square foot. Look at the comprehensive plan. The designation is rural residential. It's provide for a low-density single-family in rural areas of the county, and again, it's on the fringes of the suburban growth area. We'll look at the land use and development summary. So from a residential perspective, we would want to see densities of up to 2 dwelling units per acre. And then for the non-residential, again, limited retail and service uses at crossroads. Here you can see the entire area is in that rural residential category. It was given this designation because of that area's proximity to the base, even though it's understood there is development patterns above that 2 dwelling units per acre. Again, it's just proximity to the base and trying to limit additional high, density developments near sensitive areas. There's no environmental conditions that were reviewed, no regulated floodplains or blue line streams. So we take a look at reasonableness in the public interest. Could be reasonable due to the subject property being adjacent to existing residential 8 manufactured. The small size of the parcel was something that came up at planning board, and the subject property being consistent with the character of the area. Objective 6.1 is promoting a broad range of housing types and styles, locations, price point, and amenities. Specifically, as well, we want to have emphasis on that variety. Then it could be considered not appropriate as residential 8 manufactured does not align with the rural residential future land use category, as they have different prescribed densities. Requests could not be supported by objectives 1.1, 1.3, and 1.4. 1.1 is we want to utilize our future land use map when making rezoning decisions. 1.3, we want to preserve the rural landscape. And 1.4 is, again, protecting land, sea, and airspace critical to military training operations from incompatible growth patterns. Look at Planning Board met at December 5th and voted unanimously to recommend approval of the request. The applicant was present and spoke to the board, and no citizens spoke against the request. The Planning Board had a few questions and had a little bit of a back and forth with the applicant just regarding the property. And the chairman of Planning Board had the following remarks. The owner wishes to rezone the property from RA to R-8M on behalf of his mother, the owner. He states that the intention is to subdivide the 1.62 acre parcel so another single-family home can be built, and the R-8M zoning would allow that. The board found the rezoning to be consistent with the Horizon 2040 plan and the future land use map. And no military impacts were presented during the planning board meeting. And again, the back and forth was, could the property be subdivided under the current zoning designation? And there's just not enough property there. That was something that came up with the pre-application meeting with the applicant. Here you can see the property in question and just the surrounding other homes. There's some other nearby manufactured home parks. And you take a closer look at the property, you can see that existing residential structure and the cleared area where it's, we would presume a subdivision line. Here you can see where we posted the site picture. And a little bit of a better picture there because the other was limited visibility there for you. As respectfully requested that the Board of Commissioners consider the proposed zoning map amendment of PRZ 2024 number 28. Adopt a statement of consistency for the amendment and authorize the chairman to sign the necessary documents on behalf of the county. This concludes the staff presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Metcalf. Mr. Smitherman, open the public hearing.
There is no one signed up, Mr. Chairman.
Make a final call to the audience.
I am here.
Mr. King, go ahead and state your name and address so they'll have that
Josh
for you.
King, 127 High Hill Road, Jacksonville. I am here on behalf of my mother, Anita King. She owns the property at Verona Road, and we are looking to rezone to subdivide that property into two so we can build a residential single-family similar to the characteristics of the neighborhood. We're looking at 1,400 to 1,600 square foot, 3-bedroom, 2-bath. Our goal, one of our goals, we lost Dad a couple of years ago, year and a half ago, and so Mom trying to figure out what to do finance-wise. Dad was the breadwinner for the family. Mom's a retired school teacher, so we're looking at how to possibly get her long-term investments to help financially for her. And this lot seemed like it was a good possibility to be able to subdivide, as the existing residence is set off to the right side with the left side pretty open and clear. And so that's what the goal is for the rezoning. When I spoke with Weston Lyle, he had mentioned to me, well, Josh, you've got a ton of properties right around you that are already zoned R5, and if we could just get your property zoned that way, it could then be subdivided and you could build a small structure on that property that your mom could either sell or long-term rent. She's not decided which way she'd like to do that yet. Obviously, cart before the horse, we've got to get the rezoning approved and then it's subdivided. But that's the goal with this one property here for us. So are there any questions?
There may be, but not right now.
Okay. Thank you, guys. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Mr. King. All right, with that being the last speaker, we will close the public hearing and move to the commissioners.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any questions, comments, discussion?
Hope you can get a septic tank on that little lot.
I met with a friend of mine out of lot there, and he walked in with me, and he felt pretty confident that we would be able to get a septic tank over on that lot. The existing lot, the septic tank is on the far right side of the lot, so he felt like there should be plenty of room to do that. So we're hopeful for that, yes, sir.
Okay. All right, no further discussion. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Mr. Metcalf, your last hoorah for the day.
Yes, sir. All right. Last rezoning request of today's 6, PRZ 2024 number 29 is the Owl Hollow 2 rezoning request. 2 because there was already a previous one with that name. The applicant is John L. Pearson Associates. The owner is 5368 Richlands Highway LLC. The requested changes from rural agriculture RA to residential 10 or R10. There are 4 tax map numbers, and for these, there's 4 parcels in question, and they're listed there on the screen. The location is 5370 Richlands Highway in the Richlands Township. Across the 4 properties, they total an acreage of 9.56 acres, and the existing use varies depending on the property, but it's residential and vacant. Water for the area is a 6-inch on Wausau water main along Richlands Highway, and there's also a 12-inch on Wausau sewer force main along the same road. Fire Services Roadstown Fire District with an ISO rating of 4, and our most recent traffic count comes from 2023 with a trip count of 19,000. Staff estimates capacity at 34,500. The schools serving the property are Clearview Elementary, Trexler Middle School, and Southwest High School, and all schools have capacity. When we look at the rezoning map, you can see the property, again, there in green, outlined in red, is with the rural agriculture designation. And there's some other property in the nearby area that has other residential designations, specifically also across the street, does have that residential 10 designation. Look at the current request is from rural agriculture with a minimum lot size of 20,000 square feet, is to maintain a rural development pattern that preserves the agricultural character of the county. Comparatively, residential 10 is to accommodate moderate density single family and limited multifamily residential development in urbanizing areas of the county. The minimum lot size would go from 20,000 to 10,000 square feet. And again, multifamily would be allowed with that residential 10 designation. Look at the future land use map was given a rural residential designation, and it's to provide for low-density, single-family residential development in rural areas of the county on the fringes of the county's suburban growth area. We look at the residential summary, because again, it's a request to residential, is a single-family residential development at a density of up to 2 dwelling units per acre. Here you can see on the map that rural residential designation, while on the other side of Richlands Highway, it's the agriculture and forestry designation. We understand that some of the existing developments don't meet that prescribed density, or others would have that zoning, but again, this is about that future growth. You can see the environmental conditions. There's no regulated flood zones that are currently mapped on the county, on the property. You can see the streams. There is a blue line stream, Ash Branch. There at the rear of the property. And again, no wetlands delineations have submitted to staff at this time. But you can see how the blue flood zone just magically stops there. That means it was not fully mapped with FEMA study. So certainly potential there could be AE flood zones in the back. But again, we would handle that through the development review process with any applicant. Could be considered reasonableness, or it could be considered reasonable and in the public interest due to nearby residential 10 zoning. And the subject property is consistent with the character of the area and nearby uses. There's 2 objectives in the comprehensive plan that support it. That we want to proactively manage growth and guide new development to areas with existing or planned infrastructure with sufficient carrying capacity. And we also want to promote a broad range of housing types. Styles, locations, price points, and amenities. The proposed rezoning could be considered unreasonable due to subject property not aligning with the future land use map, as residential 10 would not be an appropriate zoning district to rural residential, just due to, again, those residential densities. Objectives 1.1 and 1.3 would not support it. 1.1 is utilizing the future land use map. 1.3 is preserving the rural landscape through the protection of farms, forested, and other working lands to limit suburban sprawl. A planning board met at December 5th and voted 4-1 to recommend approval of the rezoning request. The applicant was present for the meeting, and 1 citizen spoke against the request. Their concerns were, again, development of the property would result in nearby flooding, and they just had concerns with the addressing of some homes, specifically in their, I believe, manufactured home park that's nearby. But again, that's something that staff can work with that citizen to follow up on separately. No military impacts were present during the planning board meeting. A statement from the chairman of the planning board reads, the owner wishes to rezone the property from RA to R10. The area does have R10 zoning in close proximity. The board found the rezoning to be consistent with the Horizon 2040 plan, but inconsistent with the future land use map. Take a look at the area. You can see, again, that adjacent manufactured home park that was referenced previously, as well as some of the other residential developments in the area. And here you can see the 4 properties in question. See where we posted for the notice, and again, on that front parcel has that residential use because there is a house there. And the properties kind of go back and then would curve off to the right if you're looking at, from this direction, looking at the property. It's respectfully requested the Board of Commissioners consider the proposed zoning map amendment of PREZ 2024 number 29, adopt a statement of consistency for the amendment, and authorize the chairman to sign the necessary documents on behalf of the county. This concludes the staff presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Metcalf. Mr. Smitherman?
Yes, sir. The only person signed up for this public hearing is John Pierce.
Good morning again, John. Pierce, 405 Johnson Boulevard. I'd like to just address a few points. I spoke with her. If you'll notice, there's a little house right up front, and that belongs to Mr. Chris Barber, and then he owns east to the north of us as well, and I spoke to him, wondering if he had any concerns with the rezoning. He indicated to me he didn't have any at all. In fact, he'd like to. He indicated he'd rather see it develop what we're proposing versus mobile homes on it, because he wants to see some of his at the back that possibly could add on this development. And if you'll notice to the south of it, it was some of the family that originally owned it was a large manufactured home site, probably 40 units on it. And I just think what we're proposing we are a whole lot better for land use, proposing being able to build either duplexes or that kind of thing back there. And we've got, like I said, we've got sewer and water available. And I'll be here to address any comments y'all may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pierce. I'll make a final call to the audience. Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and come to the commissioners.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yeah, real quick, Carter, what can we do to, and there's probably other areas in the map like this, I've been through this before, your comprehensive plan, your land use map, there are things that we can do to bring unity between the two?
Mm-hmm. So the initial drafts of Horizon 2040 actually had this area in suburban growth, but it was through feedback as we began engaging our planning board with concerns of the speedway and some of the noise that's generated. And so we scaled back the future land use designation. And again, this is about that future vision. So at the same time, the staff found, as we're ranking priorities, number one, what is the direction of growth and what would fit best with the future? And then second was, can we align our future land use map with zoning? So there were some times where we had to go against the zoning on the ground because we are really focused on future rezoning requests and wanting to make sure that the future density lined up with the direction of the county, which is, again, providing that balanced growth. So sometimes they don't match and it is intentional, but we know that Richlands Highway and Gum Branch were certainly areas facing significant growth pressure, and it's in Horizon 2040 that we will come back and do some small area planning, which is really a very detailed look at those areas, and kind of a Richlands to Gum Branch corridor study is something that is top of mind for our small area planning. The exact timeline of those plans, we're unsure. That'll be a conversation, obviously, through the budgeting process and again, the staffing capacity of planning. And also, again, certainly at the direction of the board, we can, certainly do at your leisure. So, but that is all being said, we understand this is an area facing a lot of growth pressure that needs additional study.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Metcalf. Any other discussions or questions? All right, I have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, hearing none, motion carries. So we'll move to manager's comments.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just very briefly, I want to reemphasize that we continue to meet with all of our employees in our values conversation around reach, resilience, excellence, accountability, customer service, and honesty. And we're having a great time meeting with, we're more than halfway through the organization, trying to meet with every employee to find out what these terms mean to them and how they exercise these values in their daily life with Onslow County government. Friday was the beginning of our first round of budget submissions. We've received our capital request and personnel request for FY26, so that has officially begun. I want to thank the board for the great retreat on Thursday. We were able, I think we were all super pleased that we have an actionable, comprehensive strategic plan that the board will be considering adopted next meeting. And that strategic plan and the accomplishments therein will be the basis for our budgeting process this year as we try to figure out what it takes to align this organization to meet your goals. And then finally, look forward to meeting with the Board of Education this week, talking about the growth pressures that we all experience, and we've heard about much of that this morning. And we will be meeting with the Board of Education later this week here in this building. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Smitherman. Now, Commissioners' comments. Who would like to start us off? No volunteers. We'll start with Commissioner Bennett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's been a long day. Y'all have a good day. Goodbye.
Commissioner Paget.
Thank you, everybody, for coming. Thank you for being here. We try to take care of business the best we can. Thank you.
Commissioner Davis.
I want to thank Corey for the meeting earlier. We got to meet Corey at the New Bern, and so thank you, Mr. Smitherman, for bringing him before us to speak. You're an intern from? NCACC. Yeah, put that in English for us. Yes, so thank you for participating and supporting our county, and the work that you did today was fantastic. Thank you. Stormwater plan, a lot of some of what we heard today, I feel like maybe the county needs to consider looking at what a stormwater plan would be and what if we should adopt one. I do, in my history, have found them to be helpful to go along with what the state does. And Mr. Housen, I would ask, just like Commissioner Paget here, that you would please take good care of your neighbor on that. I have, unfortunately, in my life, seen where neighbors weren't good neighbors, and North Carolina's a downhill state. You probably already know that, but we would really appreciate if you take care of him when you're doing your work. And I know you committed that to Mr. Paget, so I'm confident you will. I'd like to recognize Mr. John Taylor with Mr. Senator Ted Budd's office. Thank you for being here and attending, and we appreciate what Mr. Budd's doing for our country, and if you'd pass that on my behalf, please. And then I was approached, ironically, about taxes on Friday morning, and the question was, Mr. Davis, we've heard you say nothing about taxes, so I'm going to make my tax statement clear. I do not support raising taxes, and so particularly in the tax rate. And if I prefer to cut taxes, to be very honest. And if the assessments come back high as we anticipate in 2026, I do believe in a net zero, and I do realize that puts our staff at a very difficult task and challenge, but I am a net zero, no tax increase, because I do believe that we have an incredible amount of income and we have an incredible fund balance. With that, just thank everybody, the staff, particularly Kevin, and the work that you guys do to keep us rolling. And the couple meetings that we've had this week have been very helpful and beneficial. So thank you.
All right. Commissioner Carpenter?
Sure. Just to be brief and duplicate a little bit of what Mr. Davis said, I just want to thank the staff immensely for the work that you put into our retreat last week, which I felt was very successful, and also the workshop we had today. I know there's a lot of gathering of documents and conversations and such that go into that in helping us to be able to understand better the decisions that we need to make, and I appreciate that. So have a good week.
Commissioner Buchanan?
Thanks, everybody, for being here, and thanks, everybody that worked hard on the retreat. Another good retreat. Thank you.
Vice Chairman?
Great retreat, David. Thank you all for being here today. Have a great week, and we'll see you later.
We just reiterate, we had a lot of work done last week at the retreat, a lot of work coming in front of us, getting started in the budget, and we're looking forward to seeing what we are able to do with the budget in regards to everything associated with that. So everyone, have a great week, a great day, and we'll see you next time. Need a motion to adjourn?
Adjourn.
Second.
We are adjourned.